Hello there. Today I'm delighted to be tasting a Chardonnay from Kumeu River here in New Zealand. Kumeu River, based in Kumeu, which is about 25 kilometres north of Auckland, northwest of Auckland, and this is Kumeu River's 2022 Hunting Hill Chardonnay. Kumeu River these days have a huge reputation for producing one of New Zealand and arguably some of the world's best Chardonnays. This reputation is largely based on three wines they make from around Kumeu and nearby Waimaku that are single vineyard bottlings. So there's the Coddington, Hunting Hill and Matty's Vineyard. The winery here was founded in 1944. The winery was originally called San Marino. The property had been bought by Mick Brackovich, who is the grandfather of the generation of the family who are currently running the winery. But the majority of the development of the estate was done by his son Matty. In about 1979, Matty took steps to improve the quality focus of the winery. A big step in that was removing some of the hybrid vines that they were using to produce fortified wines and that sort of thing. And in 1980, the planting of Hunting Hill, this particular vineyard, was a major step forward in terms of the production of quality wine from international grape varieties. So they planted Chardonnay, they planted Sauvignon Blanc, they planted Cabernet Franc and Merlot there. There's a hillside. It's on the opposite side of the highway from the winery. It's just above Matty's Vineyard itself and generally is one of the later vineyards to be harvested. The soils here are relatively heavy clay soils, and to cope with the vigour that water-retaining soils like this can give vines, the Brackovich family have chosen to train the vines into what they call lyre trellising, and that helps to harness the vigour of the vines and to focus that onto producing ripe fruit that retains really good fresh acidity through keeping good pH. 2020 is the fourth of a row of really good vintages that they've had at Kumeu. It was a relatively early vintage, and a vintage where temperatures didn't get much above 28 degrees, were fairly regularly above 25 degrees for much of the season, allowing the grapevines to slowly and consistently ripen the fruit. Hunting Hill, one of the last vineyards on the estate to be harvested, probably picking in early March. The fruit doesn't have particularly far to travel to the winery, so arrives in really good condition. It's pressed and the juice is fermented while it's still quite cloudy, quite turbid. The approach used here is to ferment entirely with ambient yeasts, with the yeasts that come into the winery on the fruit from the vineyards. Therefore, I think this turbidity helps to feed those yeasts, and everything is put into barrel for fermentation to start. You can produce barrel fermented wines by putting everything to a tank, starting a ferment and then transferring it into barrel, but that tends to give you a more consistent nature across the fermentations. Here every barrel can potentially be fermenting with different yeast at different stages of the fermentation. Fermentation, as I say, going on in barrels. They're 228 litre Burgundy barrels made from French oak. I think about 30% of those are new every year, and the malolactic conversion also goes on in the barrel itself, with all the wine undergoing full malolactic conversion. The wine is left in the barrel for 11 months. Fermentation and malolactic conversion are conducted in temperature controlled cellars. Therefore there's some temperature control, but each barrel's fermentation will go on at a slightly different temperature according to its location within the barrel form, and that's going to give lots of different flavours that gives a wide range of blending options. Aging is done with the heavy lees left in the barrel. The wine stays in barrel for 11 months and the different barrels are then blended to produce the one wine, which is then bottled just prior to the next harvest. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? First thing to say is you have a wine with a relatively pale lemon colour. The wine's 13.5% alcohol and it's completely dry. It's showing some tears on the glass, but it does appear to be quite a sort of an almost sort of slightly glycerol viscosity there in the way that it's sloshing around the glass. So let's have a look at the aromas, shall we? To me, there's a very pronounced minerality. There's almost a sort of a saltiness to the nose to begin with, and that's overlying a lemony citrus note that I think has some richness and ripeness behind it that's probably going to give out to more sort of stone fruit flavours on the palate. So let's taste it, shall we? The wine's completely dry, and it's got lovely, crisp, mineral acidity. Again, that sort of saline note is coming through, but behind it actually, and I didn't see it so much on the nose, there's a real... So people describe barrel fermented Chardonnays, particularly Merceau, as being mealy, and that is there. So you've got an almost sort of an oaty, mealy sort of note there. And I think some of that is the fermentation aroma. There is a sort of a slight sort of gunpowder, flinty note there from the byproducts of the yeast during fermentation. But behind that there is that sort of richer, sort of more oaty note. And then behind the barrel notes, you've got that beautiful, rounded, peachy fruit. There is a degree of crisp, lemony freshness, but the finish is sort of really clean and mineral. And again, that note of salinity is coming through. The wine is medium-bodied. It's not huge. Sometimes Hunting Hill can be really quite powerful. This is showing as being more open than some vintages. You know, that sort of peachy note coming to the fore is more typical of Coddington. Having said that, the peachiness here is much more overlaid with that lovely mealy note of the oak. There's lots of slight vanilla notes, perhaps even a tiny touch of sort of gingery spice there. And all these flavours are interplaying on the finish there. So they're coming in waves there. There's a little bit of warmth coming through from the alcohol, but the acidity is still keeping the finish fresh, and it's keeping the flavours long. This is a really good example of some of the best barrel fermented style of Chardonnay that you'll get. It's elegant, it's intense, it's not too big and rich, but the flavours are lasting. And I suspect this is a wine that will age for at least 5 years, probably twice that, and will sort of just continue to gain more and more complexity in bottle. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this an interesting tasting. If you've enjoyed it, do please like and share. Do also please leave your comments. I'd love to hear what you think, either about these wines or about our videos. And if you can, it would be great if you signed up to follow us on YouTube. We'd love your support there. Most importantly, however, it would be great if we could see you for another tasting very soon. Bye now.